Well, that's as far as we're on.
Yes.
So we think I just waiting for everybody else to catch up and stuff, and we'll go ahead and get ready to get started. Um, but here we are on a Thursday. And we thank God for another opportunity to come on here, Facebook Live, present our program, Time of Empowerment. Hopefully everybody,
Thursday night.
yes,
Yeah.
hopefully everyone out there who will be joining us and who's out there in the audience. There's Tony. Hey,
Yeah.
hon.
Hey, Dolly.
Has had an awesome Christmas, holiday, and especially as we get ready to move into the new year. And Pastor Flowers, I do, and when we thought about this, oh, my sister's on. How you doing, Pat?
Oh,
Hey, man, good to see you. This
good
is
to see you.
yes, this is the last broadcast for 2018.
Yes, it is.
It's the last. Our next broadcast we will be in 2019. You know, hey y'all.
Hey.
So we thank God for you. We thank God. Again, we're waiting for a few more to join
Yes.
and to come on and stuff. And while we're waiting for them to come on, we're going to talk just quickly, briefly about our books.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about those. I'm excited about that. We finally had an opportunity to show this book. I've been waiting for this book to come for a while. We've had it on order, so
Yeah.
we're gonna show those two last. But we talked a little about that. Those of you who are here, I'm gonna just briefly say some things about it. But if you want to know, we got some excerpts from the books, what the books actually talk about on a video presentation on Facebook. So you look on my page. It's on Pastor Flowers' page as well. You look on there, you'll find some details about the books. But we just and we've said this on the video that we're not. Hey, Leona, we're not writing these books to
That's
be.
Anna Cannon.
Oh, good. Yes, I just saw Tanya Buffalo go by too. How you doing? Good. How you doing? We're writing these books because I truly believe, Pastor Flowers, that these books will be an empowerment, a blessing to those that get them. If I want to, let me just go over these right quickly, and then we want to certainly get to yours. The first one, and it comes up. It's kind of hard to see oh, there we go, on here.
Right.
But this is the intimacy of a real and healthy relationship. This book really deals with producing the health and of your relationships, the progress, what brings forth good progress and stuff in your relationship. And there are some things we put up, some excerpts, some sections, some things, just little snippets from each book that's on that. But they can be gotten on Amazon.com. The next one we're absolutely excited about is securing the covenants in your relationship. Again, the empowerment, the encouragement, and health of your relationship is most important. Covenants can't be strong if the relationship is unhealthy.
That's right.
So in order to secure the covenant, the relationship has to be healthy. And this delves right into deep, relevant subjects that's easy reading. So again, this one, securing covenants in your relationship, subtitle is putting everything on the table for clarity. Again, we ask the question many times when we're either counseling or talking to people, what's the most important thing in relationships? And most people say communication. But we really believe that the most important thing is, yes, communication is important, but clarity, understanding.
Yes.
Because if you don't understand what you're talking about, what you're
then
communicating,
it's still foreign.
absolutely.
You can't connect.
Absolutely, most definitely. The next one is, we're excited about this one too, the Art of Relationships. Singles, are you ready? I think this is the first time we've showed this on the broadcast. This is from a single perspective, helping you to understand the health that you have to be in, what you need to look for when you get into a relationship, the signs and signals you need to look for to understand whether it's a relationship that's either been sent by God or that you need to be involved in, that you
Also,
need to
if
spend
you
your time.
and that person is on the same page.
Absolutely.
You
So
know, you could be on page 100 and they're just on page 2.
absolutely. And just because they may read the same book,
Yes.
doesn't mean they're at the same at the same level, or that they're the ones that God
Save a
sent
lot
to.
of heartache.
Most definitely. So again, the art of relationship. Singles, are you ready? And the last one, I'm excited about this one, Pastor Flowers, because of the season that we're in. A lot of people are gonna will deal with this because of this season, and I believe if people buy this book, again, it's not a sales pitch, it's a healthy pitch. We believe that these books will certainly, brother Martin, how you doing? These books will certainly help you. And this one here is The Dark Struggles of Depression.
That's Trudy. Hey.
Hey, amen. Yes.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Again, the dark struggles of depression on your emotional, mental, and spiritual life. I'm not saying this because God gave it to me to write it. I'm saying it because it's true. It's a powerful book that helps people and their families, loved ones that are around them, who may be struggling and dealing with depression. It helps to uncover some things that sometimes but if you don't know it, it leaves you in the dark. Why family members are going through depression, why they're dealing with certain things that depression brings on. So if you know someone, or if you just want to be able to minister to people who are dealing with depression, this book is, I believe, will help you and bless you, and especially help you to reach out to those who are in your family or in families that may be dealing with it. Because if you don't deal with it properly, it can really mess up a marriage.
You know, I think too, in the area of depression, that's not what we're talking about tonight, but
right.
Still in the area of depression, I think there's a lot of people who's dealing with depression, but because it's not a ongoing thing, they don't feel it's something that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
You know, they may be dealing with depression on Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you know, they're okay. And then maybe Saturday or Sunday, they start back dealing with with some depression. They feel, well, it's not that bad. It's just a couple of days. But still, it is, depression, and it's something that needs to be dealt with.
The bad part about it is because it may not be dealt with properly. Each time it comes back, it has the same effect and gets deeper. You may find that you may deal with it on Monday, and you may have a response or reaction, or something may go on, and then after you find yourself falling into it or going with emotions, it may subside, or you may have some relief somewhere, and then all of a sudden it drops on you Wednesday and it hits you deeper, and then it goes on and gets deeper. But if we learn how to deal with it spiritually, we learn how to deal with it emotionally, we learn how to deal with it physically, because it hits every area, and then learn how to deal with it as far as it touches your relationships, because it will touch your relationship.
And understand what the triggers are.
Absolutely.
And understand the knockings,
Absolutely.
Don't sit there and let yourself go to level 10 when you could have stopped it at level 1.
Absolutely. So again, the dark struggles of depression in our emotional, mental, and spiritual life. I would encourage you to go to Amazon.com and order that book. But here's one also that we're excited about. I know Pastor Flowers is absolutely excited about it. And this is the prophetic ministry and empowered keys to a successful prophetic ministry. And I'm not just saying this because about 36 years ago, she came to me and said, I didn't. You just got to be my husband. I love you. And I know the Lord sent you.
No. That is not how I was found, y'all.
Yeah.
I was found.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? For the sake of the broadcast, I'm gonna agree with her, but we're gonna have a discussion afterwards. Okay. But look.
That's a possibility.
Oh, praise God. Good.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, Pastor Bailey. Good to see you, Pastor Levin Bailey. Yes, sir. My brother. We grew up same ministry and stuff. So when I say my brother, I mean bloodline. Amen. But this book is awesome. Whether you are a prophet of age, or whether you're a prophet in the making, or whether you just need to understand the move of the prophetic ministry, this book is the book you need. It's easy reading. It's spaced so that when you might not can't see it, when you read it, she marked all in.
Now I'm marking my book.
Yes, you can put notes in here, and it's informative. It's relevant. It's easy to read.
Yes.
And I don't mean easy to read because of the language. I mean easy to read because it relates to information easily. It does. She doesn't try to use words that we can't understand, and it's not everyday words that we use.
It has 29 chapters and 29
Absolutely.
different topics. It is actually the book that came from the curriculum of the School of the Prophets. It talks about everything from, what to do when you find out that you're called. Talks a lot about submission and humission.
Absolutely.
It talks about the things that it can enhance your prophetic ministry. It talks about prophetic protocol, because a lot of prophets don't understand that there is a prophetic protocol.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're going in other churches and you're given a word or how you carry yourself.
Absolutely.
It even talks about, and a lot of prophets don't look at it like that. Just what if you miss it? Just what if one time you give a word or you think you heard a word and you give that word and then later on find out that it was not the right word.
Yes.
What do? You know, you look at that and say, okay, Pastor Flowers said, give me Bible for that. The time when David wanted to build the temple. And the prophet told him, go and do it because God is with you. And he took it as a prophetic thing. And that night the Lord told him, said, you go back to him and you tell him that I'm not with him. That he's not going to build that, you know, that temple. Sometime we move out in our excitement, move out in our flesh, move out in our, you know, want to encourage people, and they take it as a prophecy. You have to be responsible for that prophecy. So we have an area in there called Thin Lines.
Absolutely.
Another chapter I'm blessed by is Hearing God versus Another Spirit. I never forget the time when the Lord took me into that particular chapter. I had to minister somewhere, and all week long the Lord kept telling me, said, make sure you're hearing my voice. Make sure it's me you're hearing. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I got this. So got there, and I was beginning to minister, and then at the end of the preaching, I did the, you know, prayer line, see if anyone needed prayer. And this particular sister was coming up, and I know she don't mind, well, she wouldn't have minded me telling this testimony. She was coming up, and as she stepped out in the aisle, she started coming towards me, and I heard the Holy Spirit, okay, say, a house. And I thought, oh, I got this. Oh, man, yeah, I got this one. And I got ready to lay hands on her and begin to minister to her about this house. And when I got ready to lay hands on her, the Lord said to me, that's not me.
And it wasn't the Holy Spirit. It was her spirit connecting to her need.
Yes, connecting to her need. And the Lord said, that's not me. And I thought to myself, okay, this is what the Lord was saying to me all along, all this week. Make sure you're hearing from me.
Absolutely.
And not from another spirit, not from, you know, need or passion or whatever. But I learned a lot that day. He told me, he said, you tell her, you know, such and such and such and such, and I'm going to, you know, then I'll do this. And, you know, absolutely. I did, but I learned on the job training, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That day to understand and wait to make sure. So there's so many areas
absolutely.
in the particular, in this book that I just love. I love.
It will certainly be a blessing to you.
And you can get it at Amazon.com.
If you go to our video,
or you can contact me and I can get it for you myself.
If you go to our video presentation, you'll see every one of the books we showed you tonight. But I want to say this before I get to that right quick. This book teaches you how to move on from mistakes.
Yes.
If you miss it, or you know you was just felt that it was in your heart and
or you were
gave
immature
it,
in some
you're
areas.
immature. It teaches you how to get past that. Not just to get stuck there, because you can mess your whole prophetic ministry up by getting stuck on a mistake. I missed it. Well, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Don't stay there. This teaches you how to.
Another thing this book teaches, and it was a blessing to me, is the understanding the identity of the prophet. Every prophet is not the same. You know, so many times you find everybody wanting to be cookie cutter. Every prophet come in want to carry themselves in the same way. God uses his prophets in a unique way.
Absolutely.
And so it teaches you the identity that you have. There'll be some prophets that are counselors. There'll be some prophets that hold prayer lines, but you know,
absolutely,
and so many other ways that God would use them. Don't ever press to move in a way that God has not ordained for you to move.
Absolutely.
So that's the book. I think it'll bless you.
So go again. Look at our book presentation video. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube, Twitter, and stuff. So if you're looking for what our book says, you can see the outline. Each book there's an outline that tells you some of the stuff. Not the whole thing, just a little bit about the book and stuff. So go to Amazon.com, put in our names, and they'll show you all the books that we have and that we have for sale. But we thank God for tonight. Again, this last 2018 broadcast. We will be back, when 2019 rolls over in January. I think it's January the 10th. It's our next broadcast, which is a Thursday, January the 10th, and then the following every other week, every 2 weeks. But we thank God. I'm excited by this broadcast. On Sunday before last, Pastor Flowers taught, and she brought forth a message that really clicked. I mean, some things that really blessed me with understanding some things that I had dealt with, and some things that as a male or as a human being, as a Christian, you never stop dealing with stuff. There's always going to be a message that's going to say, "Boop," that hit that key, and it's going to have you thinking about some things that you may still have to deal with. But it open up some areas and stuff, and of some things that you have to look at as you're being raised. Look at in your relationship with your family, your relationship with your parents, and stuff. It's the most important that we don't just let those things slide. We deal with those things, so we don't, you know, no plant grows in the ground if there was no seed. So it has to be everything that's in us, everything that's developed in us, good and bad, or indifferent, whatever way you want to put it, had to have a seed. It came from somewhere. So we want to talk about this tonight. We want to talk about, we're going back to, I didn't know we were going to keep on with this, but God knows what's best. We're going to talk more about the family, but we're going to talk about the family from the perspective. And the pastor's going to say something, but I'm going to start it out like this. Listen, there are different reasons why things happen in families. Yes. Every once in a while, God will give us a subject that deals with something that happens that He wants to deal with. But He's not saying when He gives a preacher a message that everybody's like this. No. Everybody's not like this. So we don't want any fathers or any males to think that this is an attack on males. But what this is that if we don't deal with some things, yes, you're right. This is enlightenment. If we don't deal with things that do happen, we can't understand some of the things, or we won't get to understand or have empathy and sympathy for people of some things that we may have.
Sometimes we can look and say, you know what, I'm a byproduct of some
yes.
things that have happened.
Absolutely.
You know, didn't know why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. Didn't know why it's hard for me to connect in certain areas that I struggle to connect in.
Right.
You know, so when you hear a message like this, it's not something that you take and say, well, they're bashing.
Right.
Or they're just nitpicking or whatever. It's an enlightenment.
Absolutely.
If it's not for you, then it's not for you, you know.
Absolutely.
If it's not something that you did or something that, you know, was a part of your life or whatever, then it's not a part of your life.
Absolutely.
Then pray for those who did have.
And then use this information.
Yes.
Because whether we went through it or not, we're going to come across people.
Yes.
That we can use the information that may not be directly us, but may be a part of someone else's life. So we have to take that to understand that no, this is not me this time, or this may be me, or this. But wherever you find yourself in it, it always can be information that we can use to help someone else. And Pastor Flowers, and before you get started on this right quickly, this program has to be about not just coming on here to look smart, look intelligent. That's not one thing we want to do. Excuse me, y'all. No. Not to look intelligent, not to look smart, not to look like we know everything. No. But this broadcast has to be about something that's in the mind of God that helps all of us. Yep. And there are some things, y'all, that we either don't think about, some things we bury real deeply, or some things that some of your friends and other family members don't let you see because they don't know what to do with it. And they don't think you know what to do with it. But when we hear things, we can see certain behaviors and understand, okay, I see why either I'm acting like this or they're acting like this, why I feel like this, or why, why I have a hard time, as you said earlier, why I have a hard time connecting. Because if family can't connect, if church can't connect, if society can't connect, we're going to be in a mess. So that's why we have to deal with subjects. Okay.
Okay, one of the things we wanted to do in the beginning, before we even get started with this here, is sort of do a little disclaimer. Tonight we're going to be talking about fathers not being in the lives of the children and how it can affect you even on up into adulthood, you know.
Absolutely.
As you hear the message, you can say to yourself, you know what, I struggle with this, you know, and we can zero it back into where maybe father should have been there more or should have been there altogether. Now, what we want to say is we know that there are some circumstances that is beyond the control of some fathers.
Absolutely.
Whereas they cannot or have not been able to be in the child's life. There's a situation that happened where the father could not be there. But thank God that they had a
strong mother.
Definitely a strong mother,
yes.
And good male role models and good father figures that did step in, step up, and they were okay.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about those that didn't have that.
Right.
You know, daddy wasn't there because maybe he didn't want to be there, or maybe he was immature, or maybe he hadn't grown up enough, or maybe he just wasn't ready to be a father.
Right.
And daddy wasn't there. These are the kids that we're talking about. And when daddy wasn't there, they didn't have a good role model. male role model. They didn't have somebody stepped up and say, you know what, we're gonna make sure that you're okay. They didn't have nobody step up and say, you know what, I'm gonna be that male figure in your life. You know. So these are the kids that we're talking about, and you know, as we talk to some adults, we find out that some of the adults was some of the kids that have grown up now and have had struggles, you know, dealing with other people.
Absolutely.
And didn't realize that it stemmed, you know, from way back there.
Absolutely. This is a plan of the enemy, and I want to see this too. So, because I don't want another disclaimer. I just thought about Pastor Flowers is by no means are we discounting the effectiveness of a strong mom.
Oh no.
Not by no means.
Oh no.
By no means.
No.
But we cannot also ignore the opportunities that the enemy will take when fathers are selectively missing.
Yes.
And children feel that selective missing, and then they feel rejected. They feel abandoned. They don't feel like they're wanted. So we cannot miss that. If we miss that and stuff, you know, then it's like putting our hands over our head, walking through traffic, and act like it's not dangerous. It does have an effect. If God did not intend men as fathers to be in the life of children, God wouldn't made it so that a man and woman had to come together and have children. He just, you know, did it some other way anyway.
You know, you look back and you say to yourself, I agree with you about we're definitely not minimizing the effect of the mothers.
Absolutely.
Because when the children are let down, the mothers are the ones that hold their head.
Most definitely.
The mothers are the one that come, you know, and drop the tears. And this is not all fathers, but we're talking about the fathers who choose not to be in their children's life, who have, whatever reason, it had decided, that's it, I'm not going to be there, or I'm going to go on and do my own thing, and, you know, I'll be dead whenever. And one of the things we talked about is how sometimes they don't want to be father until the child makes something of themselves.
Absolutely.
Or someone else begin to talk about the wonderful things that they're doing. Then all of a sudden, you know, they want to step up and be dad.
The sad part about that is, as we were talking a little bit about that is, and we had a nice discussion after Pastor Flowers' message on Sunday before last, and she hit that subject. And one of the things I started communicating with is that it's hard for son who now is making his way off the encouragement of his mother and other father figures to accept this man that's coming in now off the voice of another person. And what do you mean, Pastor Flowers, by the voice of another person? He's hearing other people talk about the success that this daughter or this son is having, and now all of a sudden they want to be a part of the crowd, but they want to be pointed out as someone special, and they can't understand why this child is having a hard time pointing them out as someone special when they are special, not because they was there. They were special because the encouragement of those that was in their life, and most importantly because the encouragement and empowerment of God. And it's hard for this child to understand that you're here because you want to be here, when I know you're only here because of the voice of another person. So now this child emotionally feels you're here because you hear another person's voice, but you weren't here when you were hearing the cry of my heart.
Exactly.
You know, so it's hard.
Exactly. Where were you at in my formative years?
Absolutely.
Where were you at when I wanted to say daddy?
Right.
You know, everybody else was saying, well, my dad's this, my dad's that, my dad's this, my dad's that. And you can't relate to that.
Right.
Because you didn't have that.
Right.
You can say, well, you know, my mom was, you know, like for instance, you know, a lot of people, including myself, you know, when my father, he wasn't with me because he couldn't be, you know. But there was times that my mom was mama and daddy. Yeah. And in the last years, you know, of her life, I began to celebrate her for Father's Day and Mother's Day, you know. Absolutely.
And it happens. It happens. And so these are the kind of subjects that are hit. A lot of us in my generation, we grew up, we didn't have a strong template. We really didn't. And we did things off of our feelings and our emotions, many times being misled, and things that we ought to have done. But we're now we're teaching this because now we want us to understand as families and as friends, as people who listen and those you're connected to, that we can't stay where we were dropped. And that saying came to mind. We got to live above our raising.
Rise above your raising.
We got to live above our raising. We'll rise above it by living above our raising. No matter where you were dropped at, no matter where somebody, whether it be mom or dad, but we're talking about mostly on dads today. Wherever you were dropped in, wherever you found yourself coming up empty or handicapped, rise above that raising. Rise above, live above it, rise above it, be healed above it, break through above it. Don't stay there, because wherever you stay will always be your handicap against where you want to go. Amen. All right.
I have a question. You know, you see a lot of fathers that, for whatever reason, choose not to be in their children's life. And sometimes when you look at it, they themselves have had some struggles, in their lives. And you say to yourself, how deep is that going to go?
Right.
When is that circle is going to be, broken?
Right. One of the hardest things to do, Pastor Flowers, and you said a word that when you said it kind of rang in my mind. Sometimes we look at these situations, and sometimes the word choose is not applicable. Not because it may not be an absence of trying. It may be an absence of how do they try. If they had no one to show them, if they had no one to push them, if they had no one to instruct them, if their father was not a father, if their mother was struggling, if their mother, and they saw the pain of their mother, only thing now they can do is bitter with how they were left with this, how the mother was struggling with them, and everything seemed to be hard. So it's kind of hard to say choose not to be when it may only look like a choice, but it really may be a handicap. But when you deal with someone who chose not to be, the only thing you now can reach to do is hopefully heal both of these generations. Keep the son from being so bitter that that when he has children or she has children, they overdo things. And now the child now the child's rotten, spoiled, and not rotten, rejected. You don't want to be either one. So and then you got to go back and get the father, because he's rotten, rejected. So you got the father who's trying to break loose, the son that's trying to break loose by overcompensating with his son, and he rotten spoils him. Then you got the father who didn't have that temper, or didn't have that nurturing, so he's rotten, rejected. So you got to go back and get both of these generations and say, how much of this was your choice, and what choices were made for you, and you just follow through with them. And when we can do that, in all honesty, both generations can be healed. And I don't know, Pastor Flowers, it has to be work on both ends. I don't know, honey, if both generations will ever get to a place where they feel like a family. I hope they do. And it takes some work. It takes some honest work. It takes some honest responsibility. And it takes, we said this about a couple of broadcasts back, you got to put down your finger. I mean, if you want to go to another place, you want to go to healing, you got to stop pointing. And if you're going to point to acknowledge what it made you feel like. Then point to yourself, the one who did it, to say why I did this, take responsibility for why you followed through. And then after that, stop pointing fingers and go through the process of healing. Yes. So, and that's what it's going to take.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Should mothers chase after the absentee father who chooses to be absentee? Should she, chase after them to try to make them be a part of a child's life?
Well, here's what she can do. The best thing she can do is have the consideration of the child, not what that father should do. Because if she chases after that father and she makes him do it, that child is going to recognize or realize he really doesn't want to be there. He really doesn't want to be there. He really doesn't want to spend time with him. He comes and he's always in a hurry. It's always something else that disrupts them spending time as a daughter and a father, or father and a son, or whatever it is and stuff. So all she would be doing is setting this child up to feel the rejection. Okay. Now close. Now it was at a distance. Why my daddy don't never come around? Why my dad don't never call? So he feels that rejection, and it's easier for the mother to help buffer that when he's not there. But when she tries to force him into his life, and that child realizes everything else is a distraction. You get a call, or I gotta leave. I was gonna come, but something else came up. Or while you're with them, you're always on the phone. And instead of spending intimate time, connecting with that child, there's always something else there, because you're making him do this. You're making this man do this, and he really doesn't want to do this.
Right.
So he's always distracted while he's there. So the child now intimately, closely feels the rejection, and it's hard to buffer that when he's that close to that child. So no, you don't chase him. You hopefully he'll be healed enough or grow up enough and stuff to take responsibility for what he helped bring in this life and stuff. And if he never doesn't, with prayer and other male father figures around those children, they'll grow up healthy.
That's what I was getting ready to ask. How should you raise a child that's been rejected by the father? And how should you as a mother answer, because the children are going to want to know. And sometimes the children will think, well, Mom, you just don't want him over here. Mom, you just, and it's not that at all. It's not that at all. It's where these particular fathers chooses not to be in the
Absolutely.
children's life.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and special holidays, you can't even hardly find them. You know, you can't pick them up on the
Right.
phone because they don't want to be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the worst things a mother can do is keep running after this man, and then what here's up happening. We're going to talk about this. We're not talking about this tonight, but this is in another area. We're going to keep until the Lord says, and that is that now when you keep doing this, and moms, we can try to, like you're not going to do, this doesn't happen if you want to, but it's not the truth. When you see this, you're running after this man to take responsibility, not just monetarily, but you want him to take his position as a father. And you may not, and part of his problem may be because you don't want him. He may just want you. He doesn't want your children.
Now that's bad, but it's true.
Yes, and the worst decision you can make is compromise you to try to make him be a father. Yeah. He's still not a father. He's still just a man in the house.
Exactly.
And stuff. So you keep.
I like when you said that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, he's still.
Don't sell out.
No. So you keep doing this, and then you see him keep rejecting your child, or you see your child feeling rejected, and now you get angry. One of the sections we will deal with later, not tonight, is when children have to live out the pain in their parents.
Wow.
You know, when so much is going on, whether it be a man or whether it be a father or mother. But again, we're talking about from a perspective of where, on the question that you asked now, she's chasing him and she's trying to get him to take responsibility. He refuses, and he's always distracted when he comes over. He doesn't really pay attention to the children. He makes bargains with you if you'll do this and then I'll do that, and so forth and so on. But he doesn't make any responsible assignments or schedules with his children and stuff. And you keep doing this, and the child keeps feeling more rejected. To after a while, they state, "I don't want to see my dad." Now you're frustrated because of all the work you went through, and you can't understand why this child now seems to be giving up after all the stuff you did. Child's not giving up; it's realizing what you weren't realizing, and that dad never showed up. Yeah. Only thing showed up was the man that helped bring them here, but there was no connection and stuff. So we'll talk about that at another.
You know, children have a way of feeling emotional connection.
Absolutely. And
they know when an emotional connection is there, and they know when it's not there.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
Sometimes as a mother, you see what your children go through, and it hurts. I mean, it breaks your heart. You know, to have them hoping and wanting and believing every word that father who chooses not to be in their life, but believe every word that father says. And you don't want to tell him, look, he's a liar. You don't want to tell him, look, you can't trust that. You don't want to tell him, look, he's not going to do what he says he's going to do. But in a way, you know, you let them see for themselves.
Right.
But then after a while, you say to yourself, I'm tired, you hurt my job.
Right.
You know, don't make him or her any promises that you know you're not going to do. That
Absolutely.
you know you're not going to come over, you know, and do. If you know you're not going to buy them this, or if you know you're not going to be there for them for this, stop lying.
Absolutely.
I'd rather for you not say anything than to lie to them about what you claim to be able to do. Because when they're crying and when they're upset about it, I'm the one that's there.
And it makes it tough because after a while, especially if the father is good at manipulating, they can make promises off that spirit of manipulation, and the child will feel like the reason why they didn't do it is because of what the mom.
Yeah. Well, I want to do more for you, but your mom.
Right.
I want to do more for you, but your mom this and your mom that. You know, and then that's not fair.
Absolutely.
That's not fair.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we was talking about in that teaching was how, you know, we know that the Bible says that in the last days the spirit of Antichrist is going to come and is already here. You know, that's what it says in the book of John.
And I need you to listen to this because I don't want us. Every time we hear hear about the spirit of Antichrist, we immediately go to the latter days. We are in times. Yes. But I need us to. How you doing, Pastor Candy?
Pastor Candy.
I need us to listen to this.
Yes.
Because we need to understand the inner workings of the kingdom of our enemy.
Yes.
What he's setting up for the generations to come, and how he's like that ticking time bomb that we used to talk about. That maybe everything doesn't show up what you got when you were coming through your family, but give it some time after a while. If we don't get healed and do some good introspections of our behavior and our actions to closeness and connections, we don't do that. We don't clearly look at that. After a while, we are a ticking time bomb, and we'll explode and mess up every relationship that we get involved in. And the most important one, yes, is God, but the one under God is the families that sometimes we accidentally get involved in because we think we're okay.
We think we're okay.
Yes.
And we was talking about how the spirit of Antichrist in this time has come, and it is connecting with the rejection that a lot of children,
yes,
is dealing with. It connects with the spirit of rejection by father or by mother, and it causes them to be able to. It causes them sometimes to wonder how God can love them.
yes,
Is God even real?
absolutely.
My father couldn't love me.
Right.
How can I relate to this when I can't relate to God when I couldn't relate to my father?
Absolutely.
So this is a spirit of Antichrist that has connected with that and makes it even stronger and harder for men,
Absolutely.
even grown men, to relate to God. Even sometimes Christians begin to wonder, well, is God really real? Even people in the world, you begin to talk to them about, how much the Lord loves them and God loves you and He there for you, He'll do all, and you're telling them all of this and they can't relate.
Right.
They can't relate because they had no relationship with their father. So how can they relate to a father who loves them,
absolutely,
as you're telling them, who
absolutely,
loves them and who's there for them, who won't let them fall, who will deliver them, who will heal them, and all of these here wonderful things that we can tell them that God is doing can do for them, but yet they can't relate. Absolutely. Because they didn't have that relationship with the Father. And this is where the spirit of Antichrist comes in and makes it even
absolutely,
a water gap.
Absolutely. If I have a hard time, or if it was a hard time for my father, who I've done nothing to connect to me, why would I believe with all the faith that I need that God will stay connected with me with all the mistakes that I do make? Yeah. Now, my natural father rejected me for nothing. Why would I think God would accept me with how messed up I am? Right. So that's where the Antichrist jumps in, because he wants us to always think that what we experience on this realm correlates exactly with what we need to experience on that realm. There are some telltale signs of some things that we need to use or need to look at when we experience down here. But what the behavior of our natural fathers has no impact on the love, grace, mercy that God has towards us. But you can't tell people who the Antichrist spirit is taking advantage of, their rejections and abandonments and all those kind of things that is messed up and redesigned or whatever their emotions and feelings towards father figures or those that are in authority. And that's why it's important for us to look at this and find out the spirit of Antichrist. What are you doing to this next generation? Yes. How are you messing up our kids? Yes. How are you messing up our relationships in our families? Yes. How are you making it so hard that when I come to church, that's my pastor, but it's only my pastor as long as they're in the pulpit. Yeah. They can't touch me. They can't reach me. They can't. They preach them.
They can't reach them. No, they can't reach them.
No, I know what you're saying. This pulpit is right, but I don't know if I can't trust love you enough to come up there and let you speak into my life about some of the things. Like a father or a mother or authority figure would and stuff. And sometimes people stay in the pews not because they're prideful, not because they're arrogant, not because they want to keep someone in bondage. They stay in the pews because of what the enemy through rejection and abandonment has seeded in them not to believe that they're worthy enough for God to take time to deliver them and make them whole again.
And then because of the spirit of rejection of fathers, and when the spirit of Antichrist comes in and begin to compound that situation, a lot of times you find Christians, and you hear them talk this here, you find them, if they have messed up, if they have fallen short, or if they're not working to a certain limit, I guess trying to earn God's love, so to speak, they will begin to feel rejected. Absolutely. And the spirit of Antichrist will make them feel like, well, God is rejecting you because you're not good enough. Absolutely. And they will buy into that because in the back of their mind, from a child on up, they felt they wasn't good enough because their father just couldn't love them enough.
Pastor, I want to ask you a question too, because you kind of thought. Now, there are those who are in the pulpit, and please don't miss, who are like the dad that will beat first and talk second. You do something wrong, he's all on you.
Disciplinary.
He's a disciplinary. He's not a nurturer. He's just a disciplinarian. And
that's unbalanced.
Yes.
You can't nurture.
So sometimes, Pastor Flowers, this same spirit that we're talking about infiltrates the pulpit.
Yes, it does.
There are pastors who stand up behind the pulpit who had fathers, and now, and I'm not saying compromise the gospel. What is right. Gotta live holy. Gotta preach about holiness. There's a heaven and there's a hell. We gotta preach about what's right. But how about those people who need nurturing and need healing, need deliverance, and this angry pastor's
bleeding all over
pulpit.
everything. Yes.
His nurturing is his father wasn't around, or his father when he was around, he was on him. He was on him and stuff. So
he didn't father him.
Right. He didn't nurture him. He just manned him.
He was just strong disciplinary.
Yes. Go ahead.
But we always teach, if you can't nurture, if you can't encourage, then you don't need to be the one to discipline him.
Absolutely. And one of the things I believe that if we find ourselves, the only thing we can touch first is what they've done wrong. Or after we touch what they've done wrong, and you can't nurture them out of that wrong to get to a place of not want to do it again, then you need some healing too.
Yes, amen.
You may be a part of this kind of thing where you got saved, but you didn't. Those things that and I'm sorry to say this, but those things that pushed you towards ministry may not be what you thought it was. You may push towards ministry, and you may have been gung-ho towards ministry because you weren't going to let anybody manipulate you and tell you what to do. So you made sure that you were the one telling things what to do or telling people what to do and stuff. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but we have to make sure that the motivation behind our ministry, our outreach, our parenting is to empower, encourage, and touch people at an intimate level.
Yes.
If all you want to do is beat that child, you have an issue. You have a problem. If you don't want to sit down and talk to them, if you don't want to find out what's going on with that child, because every child is not rebellious because they don't have good sense. Some children are rebellious because there's something missing, whether it's in you or in the one that's missing. But something is missing, Pastor Flowers. Okay, hon, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, I'm finished. I thought you were going to go next. Oh, you ain't got enough? Oh, Lord Jesus. It's been a quick one.
We were still talking about, how the spirit of Antichrist came about and hooked up to that spirit of rejection in children.
Yes.
And it grew up in them, and they became untrusting, to leadership or whatever looked like it took a position of leadership in their life, whether it was their pastors or whether it was God. It came to the point where we even saw where some men was so messed up from the rejection of their father that they had a hard time keeping jobs.
Yes.
Especially if their bosses was men that was strong leaders.
Absolutely.
And it was something inside of them that rejecting that leadership or rejecting that fathership. No man gonna tell me this, or no man gonna treat me like this, or no man, and it becomes a point where they lose job after job after job after job, and you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, but he's your supervisor. He has a right to tell you to, or ask you to do these here things. Yeah, but he be trying to boss me. He be trying to tell, and you see, and you understand that they're manifesting from where they were dropped, manifesting from where they were rejected, and now they're of an age. They're grown, and now they're putting up these defenses where nobody's going to reject me again. Nobody's going to hurt me again. That father figure that wasn't in my life, I don't need him now. And so now where they put up the defenses that I don't need no father, ain't no father going to come in here and try to telling me what to do, they have a problem now staying on certain jobs.
Absolutely. It's hard. It's hard. First of all, I want to say hello. I saw Sister Smith, Shirley Smith, Apostle Brooks' daughter-in-law, her husband, Brother Smith.
Okay.
God bless you. Good to see you. One of the hardest things, Pastor Flowers, to do is that to ask a child who's grown to be an adult to check their emotions when their emotions had never been matured by someone who's nurtured them.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes you have so many young men that grow up and seem like they're angry. And they'll tell you, I don't need nobody, I'm okay. And you ask them, well, okay, was your dad around? What did that have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you and stuff, because if you don't feel complete in your nurturing, then that's the part of you that's angry and frustrated.
One thing that we do a lot of counseling, a lot of marriage counseling, and the moment that a rejected son sits on that couch for marriage counseling, you know it.
Yes.
You know it.
Yep.
Because it's hard for you to get through to it.
Absolutely.
It's hard for you to get. I can say some stuff to them, and they'll hear what I say.
He thinks I'm picking on it.
But when you say stuff to them, it's like you're picking on them,
Yes.
and you know automatically.
Absolutely.
He has put up his defenses to a counselor, a father figure, anything in that area, because you're not going to speak in my life now.
Nope.
You're not going to be a part of my life now. because when I needed you, you wasn't there,
right.
and you rejected me. Now I'm rejecting you, and it's hard too, you know, to be able to sit there like that, and you're saying to yourself, okay, this goes a lot deeper than what's happening here.
He thinks I don't understand.
Yeah.
And you can also tell when a woman has been has missed her father and
Yes,
stuff
absolutely.
is because she stands off.
Yes, she does.
You know, she's not disrespectful, but she stands off. She listens, and she listens with a critical ear. She doesn't listen with a receptive ear. She listens with a critical ear because she wants to make sure her rejection makes a male voice sounds like manipulation.
Absolutely.
So she's on guard for everything, and the enemy uses this against her because now she's on guard against every man, and she not only is on guard for every man that's a male, that's a father figure. She's even on guard with her husband.
Yeah.
She checks him at everything he says to her because she wants to make sure he's not setting up to let her down.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know, it's
because you got your guard up,
absolutely.
even though you're trying to love without hesitation, without any reserve or whatever.
Right.
You're trying to love, but still, there's a certain part in some women who have gone through this here that got their guard up.
Absolutely.
Because I can't let any other man hurt me.
Absolutely. You know what, Pastor Flowers?
Yes.
I know we got some more to hear, but you know, one of the things that I think, and we would encourage to do is, husbands and wives, when you have a disagreement, and that disagreement always ends up to be deeply emotional and stuff. Talk to each other, find out where is this coming from, because it may not always come from the problem that you're trying to deal with. It may be coming from a problem that you didn't deal with, that they didn't deal with coming in. Where they seem to always have a struggle, you're wrestling against, and this is the key. You're wrestling against each other's female and male position. I'm not saying you need to design what a male or female will do. I'm not talking about that. But when you're trying to be what you need to be as a female or male in a relationship, yes, you're trying to be that. They wrestle against that. They don't trust that. They don't trust that presentation. Don't just let that go. Find out where it's coming from and speak to that. The problem, deal with that. But that problem came because of the issues that weren't dealt with leading up to the problem. The problem was the avenue for the outlet of frustration, anger, mistrust, and all those other things that you see. And you look and say, where'd this come from? How did this get this big? And stuff. That's why sometimes we believe, we say this word called summit, where you just sit down sometimes, there's no problem. There's nothing that you really put your finger on. But let's find out some things that we haven't talked about, that we have tucked deep enough that it's not a problem right now, but every once in a while it becomes an emotional problem. It becomes a mental problem. I start thinking things that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, what we're discussing, or what we're even having an argument about. Those things sometimes, when the so-called problem is dealt with, those things seem to go away, but they're still there. They're still in existence. Those are the things you need to talk about in summits, not because of the problem, but talk about the things that you're able to tuck away to keep from being a problem until that ticking time bomb explodes and it becomes a problem to everything in your marriage and your relationship and in your home. Amen? All right.
That was something I was going to ask. Sometimes you find fathers who have been absentee fathers, or who was raised with rejection. You know, they literally was rejected by their father, or father chose not to be in their life for whatever reason, and now they're grown. And they have children, and they have sons, and they have daughters, they have children, and they're trying hard not to be what their father was, but sometimes they find themselves walking in that same path. How would you tell them to turn this whole situation around?
One, when you fight hard to be something that you're not, you end up fighting empty, and you end up being frustrated over what you're fighting against, being more of it than you want to realize. You have to be the best you. Get healed from the impressions that behavior that your father did. Get healed from that impression that you did. How do you know? How do you know when you're healed? When you're not working hard not to be it.
Wow.
When you work that hard to not be something, you're not healed from it. When you're healed from it, you realize that's not me. So I don't have to fight something that's not me. I just have to live what I am. So you get healed from it. Face it. Confess it. Talk about it. Go to someone that can give you some prayer, some counseling, and talk about the impression that is made. And again, let's go all the way back to about 2 broadcasts ago. It's not enough. Excuse me, y'all. It's not enough. My eyes sweating, man. It's not enough to just say how angry you are with your dad. Not enough to say how angry you are with your mom.
Should you meet with him? Should you sit down and talk to him?
Only after you can get a hold of what it's done to you. Okay. Because if you haven't get a hold of what it's done to you, it'll spread itself all over a whole lot of other things, and you'll be throwing something at that person that has no, it's not their responsibility. That's not them and stuff. Sometimes we get frustrated with people. We get angry we start throwing everything. Well, I'm not a good I'm not a good husband because of this. Oh, I'm not a good dad because of that. It has some bearing, but all of these things we have a choice factor in this. It has a depressing or an oppressing effect on us because this is the impression that we got. This is what was done to us. This hurt, this pain of rejection and abandonment is real, and it has a testimony in us. That's the thing we need to get a hold of to understand what testimony has this had. What real impact has this had on my life? When I deal with that and I'm able to bring myself to a place to understand, even though my dad showed me this, I'm not that. Even though my mom showed me this, I'm not that. That's not me anymore. When you come to the table, you can bring you that's not that and talk about what his behavior or their behavior tried to make you. You know, and that's just going right back to the same thing. You work hard, and you brought out a point in the message. I don't know if you can get to it on here. We can be so we can work so hard to not let our kids live like we live or feel like we feel, that we end up messing things up. We overcompensate. We wear ourselves out and stuff. Do all you can for your kids, but don't try to make up for what your father didn't do for you.
Or what their father's not.
What their father's not. Yes, absolutely. Do for your children what you do as a parent. You don't have to answer for their negative behavior, but you always have to respond with your positive behavior.
Yes.
You don't have to answer for their negative behavior, but you always have to respond as a parent for your positive behavior. Because when they're out of sight, your good behavior will keep their bad behavior out of their heart. But if you keep reminding them by your frustration and you're always trying to overdo stuff, overcompensate, your child will always feel like something is missing, and you're trying to make up for it. Now, here's a sensitive area, Pastor Flowers, that I'm gonna throw out at you, and I'm gonna be quiet and let you hit this one. One of the hardest things to tell this to is a parent who's there with a child whose father's died. You know, the burden now on this parent is, I don't want my child to hurt. I'm going to teach him good stuff about that dad. I'm going to teach him good stuff. I'm going to teach him how, that, and we have to deal with this. I got to teach my child that their dad did not choose to leave. That wasn't in their hands. That if they could have had a choice, they'd have been right here with you. But I need, through my examples of what they left me, their love, their passion, their attentiveness, how good he was as a husband. That's what I'm going to share with you. So you'll never wonder what he would have been like if he was here with you, because I show you by what he's left me.
I think, you asked me that question. To be honest, I think the best answer that I can give, and I know everybody don't know her, is our daughter-in-law.
Yes.
Trudy. I mean, she has done a tremendous job with Ryan. After Brian passed, I mean, it's just like, it's amazing how she kept, him, I guess, understanding and knowing who his father was.
Absolutely.
And the awesome person that he was and how much he loved him. I mean, sometimes you and I, we sit down and we think about, if Brian was here, he would be cheesing and grinning.
Yes, he would.
Because even, with the short time that he did spend with his son, he loved him.
Yes.
Oh my God, he loved him. He had a little nickname for him, but I'm not gonna say that nickname, on live. Right. But he loved him, and I thank God that she is keeping it real, and I thank God also that Andrew, the brother, oh my God, was in his life, as well as other positive male figures in his life. I thank God for his pastor.
Yes.
Because he has an awesome pastor that's there and that's tutoring and helping me in the ministry. So he had an awesome team of people.
Absolutely.
Led by an awesome mother. So,
in these situations, yes, in these situations, when mothers do jobs like that, it's easy for the child to see positive role models roll over and influence his life. Because whether he didn't experience him in life, but he experiences him through the heart and example of his mother. So it's easy for him to understand that the positive role models that are coming in his life are not there to hurt him, are not there to mislead him or misguide him. and stuff. And I just wanted to bring that subject in because there are some mothers who work hard, and they work hard to prove the love that they were left with by the husband or by the father, and it can be done, and that's a good place to be in and stuff. And then you say, okay, we roll this over down to the living ones that may not have been there and stuff. You show the same example about what your heavenly Father has showed you.
Yeah.
The love and passion, compassion, forgiveness, and mercy. So that when you teach them that, they won't walk away with years down the road questioning whether God is real, whether God can love them.
She said they also have our love and support.
Amen.
Which always.
Amen.
Always.
Amen. Amen.
Okay,
well, no problem. But I kind of voted against me with the cooking though. But and I just don't want to say nothing. I didn't want to say that, but Trudy brought it back up again. But when I was trying to vote on the cooking, they voted me down. But that's okay. I eat good though. Good. But anyway, it's we love you. We do. But it's good to see in our children and our girls how they work so hard to give an example of what love and care and concern is about the kids.
Yeah,
because
they do.
No kid needs to be handicapped because someone else is.
Nope.
And sometimes those fathers are handicapped. And I'm not necessarily talking about now my children, I'm talking about the message as a whole. Sometimes fathers are handicapped for whatever reason, whatever deficit they have in their life. They don't have the ability to relate. They don't have the maturity to want to relate. They don't have the responsibility to know how to relate. When those things are there, children are the ones that's, I'm going to say children because it's possible grandwatch. You don't like to say kids, but children are the ones that suffer in this. Amen. Okay, Pastor, what you want to?
We look at also as you begin to grow up with young women, we don't have that much time, women begin to grow up, they because they didn't have the positive father figure in their life, sometimes they're searching and they're hunting for that particular love that they're missing. They know something is missing, that particular love that's missing, and sometimes, not always the case, sometimes they wind up finding themselves treating all men like dogs and become hard. Absolutely. When it comes to a man. They want to be loved, but they got this wall up that says, I've been dropped. Yep. And they begin, and if they do get in a relationship, sometimes they're harsh with the men. Absolutely. They're hard on them and treat them as sometimes as if they've done something to them. Right. When in actuality, the only man that done something to them was their father. Absolutely. Who dropped them. Absolutely. Who couldn't love them, who couldn't be there for them because they was either out there doing their own thing or they was too young and immature and never grew up. They're 55 years old and still 12, mm-hmm. And the children suffer from that, absolutely. Or else they become promiscuous. Yeah. And never one man is enough because they're looking for their father, looking for a connection, and one thing we said too, if you would ask a child that was rejected because of a father's choice, mm-hmm. That's not all fathers because there's some awesome fathers out here. Oh, absolutely. Because of choice. If you ask a child that was rejected because of choice, what is it like to have a father? They couldn't hardly answer it. No. They'll begin to start almost like a Christmas list. Absolutely. Well, this and that, this and that. They can't relate to what a real father is. Or they will point at like hers, like my friend, like the one down the street father is. They don't know anything about the intimate part of it. They just know they see that. Mm-hmm. And it looks like how a father should be. He's always there. Mm-hmm. They don't know what he does behind the doors, mm-hmm. but at least he comes home. He's there doing their birthdays, or he's there doing other events. But they're there, and that's what they see, and that's what they can equate as with a father. But they can't equate the part, that nurturing part, that part that listens when they need an ear. May not know all the answers, but they're listening and stuff. Or someone to protect. Someone's there just in case something goes wrong. They don't relate to that part, but they relate to the part that Sally down the street, Herman down the street. Mm-hmm. Look at them. That dad's home. That's what I see fathers is. We have to change this narrative. Mm-hmm. We do in this generation and in the church. We have to change this narrative. Sometimes they'll look at it and say, "Well, I will relate to a father. How I relate to a father is not seeing my mama have to struggle so hard. Mama have to struggle for everything that we get. Mama have to struggle to put all us through school. Mama got to struggle to get all our school clothes because Daddy's still out there somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. And only time I see him is when I'm on the basketball court, or only time I see him when I'm on the baseball diamond, or see him is when somebody else is talking about how good I am in school. But as far as anything else or heavy that's going on, he's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I pray that mothers keep being strong.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, keep being strong. But I also pray because somewhere down the line in this growing up, sons and daughters reach for these fathers that was not there. They're willing to give them a second, third, and fourth chance.
Yeah, they do.
And despite all the evidence that shows that there is something wrong with their definition of a relationship, children still want that. They want their fathers and stuff. And I pray that mothers don't get wore out by this behavior, but they understand and pray that sooner or later this child's heart is going to grow. And the sad part about it is it may grow hard and harsh because of the hurt that it feels after all the rejection. But even in all of this, the awesome God that we serve has the ability to bring healing and help to all the parties.
And that's what we were saying, that, mothers pray.
Yes.
Ask God to cover those children, cover your children, because you don't want a spirit of Antichrist to connect with the spirit of rejection of father, which causes them oftentimes to grow up in church questioning, how can God love me?
Absolutely.
Questioning, God really there for me? Questioning that God love me like he loved everybody else.
Amen.
It's the spirit of Antichrist that will try to come in at their first mistake. Well, God has rejected you. You can't never go back. We've talked to people
Absolutely.
who have gone through this.
Absolutely.
And not realizing, they weren't realizing that this is not from God, but
Right.
it's the spirit of Antichrist that
Absolutely.
makes you want to feel like God has rejected
Absolutely.
you because you can't
what you
relate to
feel.
him as a father.
Let me say, we're going to get ready to wind in. I thank God for all those who joined
Yes.
and came in on tonight. My main encouragement is to all of us. Let's learn where we have to come from so we can see where we're going to.
Amen.
Secondly, all of us, whether we're men, women, boys, girls, but mostly the adults, let's not deny we hurt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We don't have to face it. I don't have to pretend I'm not hurt to make you like me or to make you want to be around me. If me not dealing with my pain makes you not like me, you're not a good friend.
Yeah.
So let's be real about our pain. Let's not go into 2019 with all the baggage that we carried throughout 2019, 17, 16, and however long that you carried it. Let's do the things that we need to do to make our family unit strong.
Yes.
And make us a strong entity, a strong part of the church.
Yes.
And ministries that we're in. Let's raise our hands when it's time for prayer. And let's go up to the prayer line and say, look, I've been angry and bitter. I've been hurt and frustrated over this. And I need God to heal me. And I know that God loves me enough and stuff. If he didn't, he wouldn't have sent his son especially for me. And I want to be healed. I want to be free. I want to be whole. Because if I'm a parent, I got children that's looking at me and they see my pain. And some of them are suffering with my pain and my frustration. I want my children to suffer like that because I want them to have a healthy family. If I'm a pastor, Lord, heal me. Because I don't want to be just a disciplinarian. I want to be a nurturer too.
Yes.
I want to help people get to a place to understand that their last mistake is not their destiny. Yes. They don't have to lay in that stuff. And I don't want to give the example to anybody that follows me that just because a person made a mistake, there's not a recovery.
That's right.
I want them to understand that. And whatever position of life that you hold in and stuff, we have to work towards nurturing people to a place of health. And the only way we can get there is that we get healthy too. Because it's hard to feel someone else coming from something if we can't feel ourselves leaving something and getting healed from something. So listen, we're going to continue to talk more about, a little bit more, if the Lord allows us, we're going to continue to talk more about this. But this was an awesome message that you gave on Sunday for last, and it was just a blessing. I want to say this before we close. Please don't forget to go by Amazon.com. Put our names in, Apostle Anthony D. Flowers or Pastor Ruth A. Flowers and stuff, and look up our books. I believe our books will be a blessing. Look on our page, and you'll see a video presentation of the books. You'll see, little things that come from our books, with our books that deal, little snippets that deal with and stuff. And I absolutely believe. How you doing, Jackie? I do want to ask you a question too about what time you want me to be there for the singing, because I know I'm supposed to sing at your wedding and stuff. Unless you cancel the appointment and stuff. If you did, I'm still coming away and put my microphone on and sing. But God bless you. Listen, go by. I guarantee these books will be a blessing to you. Get them for someone else you know that may need these books. And I don't know if Pastor Flowers was waving when I was talking about singing. I think she I don't know what's wrong with her, but this the anointing about singing and stuff. One of these days I'm gonna cut her album.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna cut it right in half. Okay.
You want to wear scissors?
Listen, love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
If you saw this video, please share it with somebody. Let somebody know what the subject is all about. We believe, again, they will bless you. We'll see you again on the next broadcast. Happy New Year. Continue to be blessed and continue to have an awesome, awesome holiday. God bless you.
God bless you.